Welcome to the Speak Like a Leader podcast with John Bates. Welcome to the show. With me today is a friend of mine named Tommy Breedlove. And I had the great pleasure of attending his book launch about a year ago at the very beginning of March. And so, if you're not haven't been under a rock for the last year, you would know that that was the last trip that I took, because it was pretty much the last trip anybody took. But it was, if you have to go out of circulation for a year, it was a nice way to kind of end circulation for a little bit. And you can find Tommy at tommybreedlove.com. You can find him on Instagram, Tommy Breedlove. You can find him on LinkedIn at /in/Tommy Breedlove. And pretty much any other channel like Facebook, just Tommy Breedlove. Okay. He's got it locked. So Tommy, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to join me.
John, what an honor, brother. And who knew on March 7th, when we were together and celebrating with 400 people, that 6 days later, the entire world would shut down. So it's good to see your face again, brother. It's good to see your face.
Yeah, likewise. It's kind of reminds me of, let your fingers do the walking, and the phone being the next best thing to being there. Certainly doesn't replace being there, but it is nice to have this, isn't it?
It is so nice to have it, man. And, it's glass half full, brother. The fact that we're getting to look at each other over camera, although people can't see us, and just to reminisce is a beautiful thing, man. I'm very grateful to be here, my brother.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you're here. And, I see over your shoulder the book that I have. My son must have run off with it or something. Legendary. And that was the book that you were launching. And I think that either at that time or soon after that time, it became a bestseller. And tell us a little bit about the ride with Legendary, and maybe start by telling us what you talk about in Legendary.
Yeah. So, man, we're super grateful. Thank goodness, because, we didn't know the world was going to close down. But
right.
I think, books like this become necessities and not luxuries, and it has become a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller. I'm super grateful for that. The reason we picked the word legendary in a world of everybody's Facebook and Instagram and social media fabulous, and we're all promoting ourselves, unfortunately, to be something we're not, because we all have our flaws, insecurities, weakness, and demons, and this is not what it looks like or sounds like to have it all figured out. But the reason I picked the book Legendary is society, our friends, our peers, and our families either recognize us as being unbelievably good legendary lives or bad. And they give it to us. If I said Tommy Breedlove's a legend, they'd laugh me out of the room, man. And so to me, it's all about how do we live the best life possible. And legendary doesn't mean anything about being rich or famous, but it does mean a purposeful, significant life, a life where the time is ours. We all struggle with time. We all struggle with purpose. We all struggle with financial confidence and freedom. We all want bigger networks. So that it takes this journey of what people want. Here's what people want, brother. We give them what they want, and when we have them, we give them what they need. So the book starts with, financial confidence, taking action, finding purpose, building a network, reconquering your time. That's what we all want, right? We all think that's what's going to make us happy.
Yeah.
And then the book takes a dramatic turn, and then it gives them what they need. Mastering our mindset, getting rid of that voice inside our head that says we're not good enough, developing unconditional love and respect for ourselves so that we can love and respect others. And ultimately, and most important, is how do we build intimate relationships with our significant other, our friends, our family, so that ultimately we live the good life and leave this world better than we found it. And so that's the journey that Legendary takes. And so thank you for letting me share that, brother.
Well, you're super welcome. It's a journey that's worth exploring, Tommy. And there's a lot to talk about in there. I think one of the things, if I can say it how I'm feeling it, one of the things that I really think came out of this pandemic, first of all, I just want to acknowledge we're all in the same storm. We are not all in the same boat, right?
Amen, brother.
Some of us have much nicer boats and much more, we're so lucky, right? And there are silver linings in this that I think we owe it to ourselves and to those that have been really beat up even worse by this to pull out. And one of those silver linings that I'm starting to see much more clearly and hear much more often from the people that I support is this realization of how much it's all together, and how you can't necessarily really truly be successful at work if you're not happy and successful and fulfilled in your personal life. And who you are here is, it needs to be, like, it's just really powerful and fulfilling to be the same person everywhere, and to bring those aspects of your life together, and get yourself behind yourself and all that kind of stuff. And we get to see into each other's homes, and we get to hear each other's kids, and we get to experience each other's problems more intimately than we did. And I think there's been a real great learning and awakening and realization of that kind of stuff. Have you seen a similar thing, or am I crazy?
I have, and it's and there's a whole bunch of ways we could take that. There's been a humbling of us all. You know, we went through a mourning process. Our way of life was taken away. We were scared. The 24-hour news is meant to scare us and divide us, and
That's right.
all that nonsense. But there's been a humbling too, and I think to start with one of your points is we had to sit in a room with ourselves, even if our family's on top of us or not. You got to know whether you really loved yourself or not. Can you sit in a room with yourself? Because there's so many distractions out there, from restaurants to work to
Yeah.
subways to social media to all this. But now we're at home. Now we can't go outside because there's a bear outside. And can we sit in the room? Do we truly love ourselves? Are we truly happy? Do we truly have peace of mind? Are we truly the person and we got time to reflect, we got time to get quiet, and we got time to even like say, oh my God, am I in the worst shape ever or better? So I think there was an awakening among people. And I think people were at a crossroads. Do they choose to do something different than they did yesterday and find that peace of mind, happiness, contentment, gratitude in what they have?
Yeah.
Or were they victims, martyrs, and said, oh, the world is against me? So I think that's one thing. But I think it's been, we're all on video and Zoom and phone. And, we were laughing, we're just lucky that a naked person doesn't walk behind us when we're on a video call, thank God, or our kids cry, our dogs bark, or whatever it might be. And by the way, that's real life. That's
Yeah.
just real life.
With
And
you.
it's humbling that, hey, you know what? We all live. I don't care where you are on the social chain. We're all living a real life, right?
Yeah.
And let's not take ourselves too serious. And here's the last thing. We realize how infinitely precious life is, and
Mm.
also how this life is one giant goodbye.
Oh, dude, you're going to make me cry.
And if we just recognize that we can look at the only thing we all truly have in common, other than our hearts beating, is that we're going to die. And we don't know when that is, and how infinitely precious it is, and how grateful we need to have and embrace and, seize this day. And if we're not happy, go find happiness. And happiness isn't in a car or a house or a gazillion dollars. The the great Biggie Smalls, I think, said more money, more problems. I think that's who said it. And so it's about, are we happy with who we are? And if not, it's a big reflection time for us all.
Yeah. Tommy, he wasn't with me when I was at your thing because he was already too old, and I'd been coming from Necker Island and just didn't want to subject him to that. But I just had to let my really beloved service dog Flash go a month ago today.
Oh
It was
man,
January 11th. And so when you say it's a big goodbye, like, I'm just really present to, it's all performance art, man,
it is.
and I've got a 4-year-old, 4.5, and I hug him and I think, it's only going to be another few years and he's going to be like asking for the car keys, So when he asks me to pick him up and carry him, man, I do, and if he comes and crawls into bed with me, I just hold him as close as I can. And, and that's one of the big things that my dog Flash and my dog before him, Milo, taught me is just get down on your knees and kiss them,
Yeah, brother.
whoever they are, whatever's going on. If it crosses your mind, love them up, because you're right. It's a big, long goodbye. Like no one here gets out alive.
No, we really don't, man. And the loss of a child or the loss of a great, and loss of a child doesn't have to mean death or a parent. I mean, your child one day is going to become an adult and have their own family and their own problems and move on, just like we did from our
Yeah,
parents.
that's
Just like we
right.
did from our
Yeah.
parents. And that's a goodbye to
Yep.
friendship, a goodbye to
Yep.
work. And the ultimate goodbye is, our time will come to an end. And we make us humans, we're the most complicated beings on this particular sphere. We make things hard. We take things too serious. We can't see what's in front of us, the goodness in front of us, because we're always comparing and competing and envious or judging. And when we step back and, like you said, just love. But let's
Yeah.
start with loving ourselves. Let's stop
Boy.
beating the hell out of ourselves, right? Loving
Yeah.
ourselves, man, giving ourselves some grace and knowing that we are enough, that we are valuable, lovable, we can be seen, we can be heard. And if we love ourselves, we can truly love others. And we don't talk about that enough in society, is we're
Yeah.
so freaking hard on ourselves. And life is tough enough, but we've got to lighten up. We've got to enjoy this ride, and we've got to see what's in front of us, not because the future is not guaranteed, brother.
Tommy, it's one of the things that I learned the hard way. I had a .com company. We raised over $80 million. I was one of 4 co-founders, and then we went out of business. And it felt like I landed on my face going 80 miles an hour and just skidded. And I was so ashamed and angry and embarrassed and hurt and just every other one of those emotions that I almost died of an autoimmune disease. And it seemed to be related to lack of sleep and stress and just I mean, I was so upset and angry at myself. And, so in that, out of that experience, out of almost dying, I didn't die. I made a deal with the universe that I would dedicate myself to just making a difference. If it please let me make it through this. And I made it. Wasn't okay for a long time. But one of the big things I realized out of that experience was that I had an autoimmune disease. That means I was destroying my own body with my own body. And all of that stuff was very real. Like the skin was sloughing off, the pain was real. But it dawned on me that all started in me, right? That's me doing that to me somehow. So I really focused in on forgiving myself and
Mm,
loving myself and being a safe space for myself. And as I started doing that work, I realized I could never give those things completely to anyone else, no matter how much I wanted to, if I couldn't give them to myself. And that is what got me through the days when it was really tough, when I would have gone back to just being all hard on myself. But I was like, look, okay, if I can't do it today for myself, I could at least do it for the people I love. And I would keep going. And I'm not going to say I've knocked that whole thing, but I've made an I've made enormous progress. And, everybody asked me if I'm going to get another dog, and I don't think I will. I don't know if I could train him because Flash picked that up himself and I wouldn't even know how. But I'm a lot better because I spent really active, purposeful time letting go of beating myself up and finding the love for myself and letting myself know. What do you have any advice about that or ways to
do.
do that?
I have, man, and you could have wrote a section of legendary there because at the end of the day, no one's going to read our resume. And I'm saying this with love. This is not judgment at all. Is a .com business almost killed you? I want to repeat that again. A
Yeah.
.com business almost killed you. It wasn't the Roman Empire, a lion, cancer. No, it damn near caused
Yeah.
your body to eat itself because of the stress and what we can do.
Yeah.
Because it's very real, right? Our worry, our stress, our
Yeah.
insecurity, our fears. And man, I got so much of my status, and status is a no sum game, man. And it is fleeting. And even the most famous people today will be forgotten in 30 years. No one will give 2 flying flips, man. And
Yep.
so it's interesting how much creed we put in our money, our systems. And I have very similar stories to you, and thought my whole world was ending. And at the end of the day, I'm so grateful that I got through it. But here's the deal, man, is And I'm one of those people, if I believe this, and I think T. Harv Eker says this, if people say money's not important, that's super not true, because run from them, they're broke.
Totally.
Run from them, they're broke, right? And
Yep.
so, but here's the thing. You've experienced great money. I've experienced it. And we've also lost it all and then rebuilt again. And what we realize is the money, the houses, the cars, those things are great to experiencing life, but they are not life. And here's the thing. All of that can be taken away from us in the blink of an eye. I mean, the blink of an eye. Your respect, your title, your money, your car. Unfortunately, even your family. We're talking about that one giant goodbye. And are you standing on a solid foundation? Is your emotions, your mental, your soul, your spirit, is it standing on love, gratitude, goodness, light, forgiveness, compassion, empathy, courage, presence? Is it standing on all those things? Or is it standing on your status, your title, your money? Because when those goes away, who are you? What are you? Where are you going? What do you stand for? And a lot of us crumble. Sounds like you and I almost crumble with that. And here's the key. I don't know why a lot of us go to the gym every day. I mean, we're both fit guys. We go to the gym to get our bodies in shape. But what are we doing to get our minds and hearts in shape? Are we practicing gratitude? Are we forgiving ourselves and forgiving others? Because if we don't forgive ourselves and others, we hold on to that resentment, which becomes our own poison. And so we literally hold on to that FU resentment backpack, and that is no way to live. And sometimes it's to ourselves.
Yeah.
And what are we doing to master our mindset, to get away that voice that says, I'm not pretty enough, smart enough, rich enough, I'm just not enough? And what if they figure out I don't know what I'm doing? Or what if they figure out my deepest, darkest desires, which are kind of strange? But you know what? They're not strange. And let me tell you why. Because if you feel it or think it, so do a billion others.
Yeah.
And so I think getting to the point is knowing we're not alone. Knowing that we're not alone in our insecurity, our fears, our wounds, our not good enoughs. And let's lighten the hell up. Let's talk about it, and let's lean in to gratitude. Forget that. Build a solid foundation. Build your heart muscle. Build your mind muscle. Build your soul muscle. Start loving yourself, respecting yourself, honoring yourself. We'll talk about tools in a minute. Start living in gratitude and start be thankful for the things you have. And then you're on the side of love and abundance, not scarcity, fear, and judgment. And then with this one precious life that we're giving, we can start building strong foundations. And then, hey, let's say we make $100 million. Great. But if you don't, you're not going to be that concerned with it. But you're standing on something, and when something goes wrong, you're standing on a solid foundation. And you said we're in a storm. How many people are crumbling right now because they haven't done any of the I call it the inner game. We concentrate on the outer game. Our whole lives, we concentrate on the outer game. My whole focus with Legendary, again, I start with what people want: purpose, money, network, more time, more meaning. But then we get what they need is the inner game: more love for themselves, more forgiveness, more intimacy in their lives, more happiness, more peace of mind. That is what we need to focus on, because the outer game becomes a hell of a lot more easy when we concentrate on that inner game.
The metaphor that comes to mind, I'll share it with you, but then I want to hear, Tommy, if you've got a story you can share with us about like the Tommy before and what happened and the Tommy afterwards. But here's the metaphor that pops into my mind as I hear you talk about that giving people what they want up front, like that's the fruits, right? That's the stuff that we all want. We want to grab those fruits and enjoy them. But what you're talking about after that, that's the roots. And people get so enamored with the fruits, and I think me included, didn't spend nearly enough time thinking about the roots that actually gave me the fruits, And so I think that's a really, really great structure you've got in Legendary, and I think it's a great way to go about it. So what's the story about
So it's all one stew, but I'll give you the two pivot points in my life. And I love your analogy of the picking the fruits and the roots. I always said it was like putting a beautiful painting on a wall that has no foundation. We're worried about the curtains. We don't even have a wall to hang them on. So what a great analogy that is. And I'll go through this very quickly. I grew up in good blue collar part of South Atlanta. and hardworking, not college educated, but very hardworking, great people, salt of the earth people. Unfortunately, Fortunately, I was going to be the first person to go to college. I had a bunch of rides to University of Georgia, University of Miami down in Florida for certain things, and thought I was going to be the first person to graduate college in my family. But unfortunately, I grew up around a lot of abuse and violence inside and out of the home. And unfortunately, I became what I hated. I became that violence. I became that rage. I became that anger. And at 18, with all these full scholarships, I committed a violent crime, and it was a very taboo crime. I was looking at 7 years in prison. I was looking at 7 years. Luckily, by some divine help in the fact that it was a first offense, it was dropped to 2 years, but it was misdemeanors. It wasn't felonies. That's a big part of this story. And I spent my 19th birthday incarcerated and not at a university. And picked myself and dusted myself off through some mentorship that I met inside the system, which is amazing. From an African-American gentleman, by the way, and that's unusual. I'm a white guy for a guy to cross racial bounds, mentor you, love you,
kidding?
hold us accountable. And he loved me even when I couldn't love me. And probably the first positive male mentor in my life. And so I dusted myself off, and I'm going to get to the punchline here. I dusted myself off. Went to work for a nuclear waste container factory for $6 an hour during the day, community college at night, ended back up at the University of Georgia, go Dogs. And then I went literally from a jail cell to Deloitte in 3 years. And Deloitte at the time was one of the largest public accounting and financial consulting firms in the world. I think it is the largest now. And I went from a jail cell to that. And then I just thought, money, power, success, the American dream or just the Western dream is going to make me. So I just started working hard. And I was a good blue collar boy. I didn't have the Harvard degree or the Texas degree or the Berkeley degrees. I just was going to outwork everybody. And I did. And so at 36 years old, I'd moved on to other firms, but I'm still at very large mergers and acquisitions, public accounting, financial consulting firms. I'm a principal, which is a junior partner. Got the corner office, the shiny suit, the car, the cufflinks, you name it, man. I looked on the outside, I looked like this dude's got it going on. But on the inside, brother, I never dealt with those fears, those insecurities, the not good enoughs. And I was taught at a very young age that I was not lovable. None of this is on this is on me. My choices are on me. But inside, there was something in me that felt not enough. And when the money and the power and the fame didn't light me up in the corner. I literally had a corner office that looked down on Atlanta, and I am not joking. Thing was the size, like you wouldn't believe how big it was. And when that didn't fill me up, I turned to all the other things that certain men turn to. Think Wolf of Wall Street. And at 36 years old, it almost cost me my life, my wife, and my firm and my career. And I literally woke up in a ditch in downtown Atlanta, half dressed, didn't know where I was. I'd probably been doing some multi-million-dollar something just 3 days before in some boardroom. And I looked at the sky and said, I don't know who I am, what I am, where I'm going. I've got all these things, but I am unhappy, I'm miserable, and I'm destroying myself and everybody around me. I said, enough is enough, dude. And so literally I went on this journey of figuring out who I am, where I'm going, what I stand for, and literally just learning who Tommy was, not the facade, not the tough guy, important guy. And mine also manifested an arrogant guy. And I'm going to say this for everybody listening to this podcast. Arrogance is insecurity on steroids. And so that was me. I was that guy. And I didn't want to be that guy anymore. I just want to figure out what Tommy was. And man, let me tell you, from coaching to mentors to therapy to reading every book I can get my hand on, I stopped putting poison in my body, all that negative talk and negative people, and just started putting goodness in, nutrition, coaching and great books and positivity and, the love side of life. And what I've realized is that through that process, I am enough. Tommy is good enough. He is lovable. He is worthy. And whatever he is, he's enough. And there's a lot about, I wasn't alone too. And so what I also realized is I wasn't alone because I always thought I was a freak, that I was alone in my, that I had all these whims and everybody else was perfect. And I realized, hey, I'm not, everybody's screwed up, man. And that's what makes this life so beautiful. But here's the cool thing, brother. And I didn't plan on ever leaving the financial world because when I turned my life around and just was okay with being me, I went from junior partner to senior partner to international practice leader. I was elected to the board of directors at 39. The rest of those folks were in their 60s, except one other person. I was an owner of the firm, one of the biggest firms, equity owner, my financial security was set for the rest of my life. My marriage was as solid as it's ever been. My network 10x, my income literally doubled just by being me. And it was the most beautiful thing. And I went from being one of the most hated people to the most beloved. And here's how I got into what I'm doing now is all of the other alpha males started, and my book is universal. It's for men and women, but these dudes in my network, bankers, lawyers, entrepreneurs, executives, advertising guys, the dudes, the other insecure alphas who are like, hey, I got all this money, but my wife hates me and I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Hey, I was that. Hey, I relate.
Yeah.
I think that's what I give people is the gift of going second, is to know they're not alone. And hey,
Absolutely.
I've walked this journey. And so about the 10th one that reached out to me and said, I need help, I was like, there's something in this and it's bigger than me. So I literally walked away from my firm. I was at the top of my game at 39 years old. And brother, it was my final, and just to chase this dream of purpose to help these people find happiness, peace of mind, better relationships without compromising their ambition or success. I don't want to compromise that because I want people to make great impact in life. I want them to make as much money as their heart desires to A, experience life, but to B, to make great impact. And so, brother, that's my journey. But, I wish I would. I have no regrets now. I wish there wasn't this wake of destruction behind me for 36 years. But hey, we get, it's never too late to start over. And I had a mentor tell me, and I'll stop, John. He goes, brother, do you want to live that story that you tell yourself, or do you want to start living your life? And when I stopped living my story and started living my life, things got a whole lot easier and better. And so I'll leave it at that, John.
Well, so first of all, let me acknowledge you for giving people the gift of going second, because it's something I talk about all the time with leaders, because I think it is an absolutely incredible leadership opportunity. A guy named Les Brown, whom you probably know, told me people don't. Yeah. So he says, people don't connect with your successes. They connect with your messes. Your message is in your mess. And Tommy, it's what I call insightful vulnerability. Not just vulnerability, but vulnerability that brings an insight. And here's why I think it's such an amazing leadership opportunity, because everybody's terrified to go first. Right? At the buffet table, I'll go first, but it's not a big deal because anybody'd go first at the buffet table, right?
You get the best cut of meat. You get the best cut of meat.
Yeah, right. But when it comes to this, it's something that's so worth doing. And anybody that just heard you, they don't think, wow, that guy's an arrogant jerk. They're like, oh my gosh, that guy learned something in his life and paid attention. I want to be around him. That was valuable to me. Maybe I'm not alone too, right? But nobody would have heard that or had that experience if you hadn't gotten over the natural fear of sharing that. And like you said, it's terrifying to go first, but everybody wants to go second or third or fourth or fifth, right? We'll never forget that conversation. It'll make a difference, but somebody has to go first. So that is leadership of the highest order, in my opinion. And there's just so much good in that story. And I just love every bit of that. And I think that what I really, really resonate with, especially maybe right now where we're all feeling so alone and so separated and Zoom is as good as it gets, you're not alone, and I always tell people when I'm working with them, my way of saying what you said is, we all have that thing we think is our thing, like, I have this problem, I'm the only one in the world, goes back to when we were 4 and we thought the world revolved around us. But anyway, I'm the only one. Every time you go to the grocery store, there are 4 other people in there at the same time as you who have that same thing, and they think they're the only ones.
That's right.
The minute we start to talk about it and share it, we realize we have so much more in common than, any differences we have are non-existent in the face of how similar we are as human beings. And we could go through time, we could go through geography, like we're all human, and that is part of being human. And that's why I love people who are willing to share stories like that, is because we all outside hearing that story get to see that we are the same. We go, oh my gosh, I've never told anybody, but I feel just like that, you know?
I couldn't agree more. And if you've thought it or done it or messed up on it, so as millions, maybe billions over the eons have done the same. And it's so powerful. And it'd be amazing. Maybe it's 4 in the grocery store, maybe 40. You never know.
Yeah, right,
Maybe
right.
all of
Depends
us,
on
right?
how big the grocery store is. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think there were some powerful things there that I'd like to highlight. And is we're not alone. And I think what's made COVID devastating is we're isolated, and
Mm,
we crave connection. We crave each other. We're pack animals at the end of the day. It doesn't matter our skin color or where we're born. We want to hug. We want to touch. We want to laugh. We want to be with our neighbors. And so we're isolated, which calls us to claw at each other. And our media wants us to claw at each other because that sells advertising. So that's
oh
what's made
man.
it. It's the isolation that's made it so powerful. And going back to the story that you shared and I shared, is, brother, not only do we crave connection, we thirst for authenticity, because we
Mm,
can't tell the BS from the real. I caught myself there, the BS from the real, because whether it's a movie or social media or news, they all have agendas. They all want us to buy something. They literally want us to buy something. Well, when someone just gets real raw without emotionally vomiting, just gets real and raw. There's a difference between emotionally vomiting. That's
yeah.
not pleasant for anyone.
No.
However, but when you get real and honest, say, this is where I've been. I own it. People want ownership too. They want accountability. They don't want victimhood or entitlement or martyrdom. I own my mistakes. Yeah, I grew up tough, but so what? So did so many others. I made the choices I made. I manned
Yeah.
up. I paid the consequences, and I moved forward. People want authenticity. They want vulnerability. They want accountability. And they want to follow someone who's taken action to do a little bit better than they were yesterday. We crave
Yeah.
it. We
Yep.
crave it as a society. And
Yep.
so I just wanted to share, I wanted to highlight all the things that you brought up, John.
Well, and just as an aside for you and anybody listening who hasn't already heard me talk about this, I got an opportunity to work with one of my childhood heroes, like one of the guys who just was seared into my mind in childhood, Dolph Lundgren. Do you know who he is?
Oh, brother, you will lose.
Exactly,
Dude, I
right?
grew up a Rocky maniac, man.
There you go. So I got to work with him and support him on his TEDx Fulbright talk. And I'll just say this, I think you would love that talk.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think you and he had a little bit of a similar upbringing and maybe a similar response to that upbringing. And, the thing that I acknowledge, it's such a beautiful talk. This will give a little bit away, but it won't ruin it. So I'd recommend just, Dolph Lundgren TEDx talk. But he experienced something growing up. He had some, he did some stuff that wasn't all wonderful, but he drew the line with his own children. He did not pass that on. And you, my friend, have drawn the line. And what you experienced is not what you are passing on. And I think that, and sorry, I don't know how to turn that phone off, everybody. It just sometimes
Hey, this
happens.
is
And
real life, brother. This is
it's real life.
brother.
Yep. I am at my house.
Indeed. Same here.
So, so, you know, that is such an enormous accomplishment. Think of the generations and generations and eons of that kind of treatment that preceded you, and we've all gotten a lot of help from each other, from the improvements in society and communication and understanding. We didn't do it ourselves. And still, the courage that it takes to look at yourself, draw the line, and make a choice to pass something on that's so much better than what you got handed. That's legendary, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
That's legendary.
I call it breaking the chain. And I had to look back on some of my perpetrators, and I've done some things that I truly, truly wish I would have done differently, but it's made me the man I am now.
Yeah.
I also had some things that done to me that no human should have to go through, especially as a young puppy. But it's interesting looking back on it with grace and love and through a lot of forgiveness and a lot of great coaching, honestly, is what did those people go through and what did they experience? Because we don't come out bad. Maybe 0.001% come out with a wiring off and can become serial killers, but the majority of us come out loving and the world is our oyster. And, I call it breaking the chain. And it could be something simple, like if you grew up with anger or just impatience, we pass that on to our children. We get OCD and impatience and angry, and it can be something that simple or something devastating. And we become the stew of what we're around, especially our parents and the leaders in our communities and the stuff that we consume. We become that. And what's great about it, and Dolphin, me, and probably thousands and thousands of others, we've decided maybe that's not what we want to do. Maybe there's a better way, and break that chain, rewire our hearts and minds. And we're by no means perfect. And this thing is a journey, and I don't have it figured out. I definitely do not have it figured out, but I work really hard at being better than I was yesterday. We'll break this chain, we'll be a little bit better, and maybe the next generation, and God willing, 5 generations, will be a lot better than we are. So I'm totally with you, man.
Yeah, that's fabulous. It brings up for me another question for you, and I'll phrase it this way. One of the things I focus on is mirror neurons and mirror thinking, and human beings. We mirror each other far more than we're conscious of, and it is how we develop the skills to be human. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about some of the people that you mirrored, like maybe that mentor who saw something in you and he didn't have to, but he did, and tell us a little bit about some of the people that mirrored you up.
Yeah, I'll start with the other side, is because, when I was unconscious and didn't know why I was acting the way I did or felt the way I did about myself and didn't make what I was doing right, but it was very unconscious, and it was like this rent cycle hamster wheel. There was something deep down in me that, pain attracts pain and darkness attracts darkness. So I felt like I was surrounding myself, from friendships to leaders to the firms I was at. And I just simply gravitated toward the darkness. And what they taught me is how I didn't want to lead. So that when I did become aware, and I remember how I'm not going to use the person's name because they're of significant influence within this organization. But the firm I may or may not have mentioned earlier in this podcast, one of the partners at that firm, and I came from very humble beginnings. And so I had to wear a suit back then for this particular organization. And I had to borrow certain clothes, and I had one pair of pants. I had an off-color jacket, a tie, but that's the only outfit I had. And I thought I looked good. I mean, I really did, because I'd never worn anything like that, And so I show up for my first day, and he walks out in his tailor-made suit. He goes, "Oh, somebody get this kid some clothes." He looks like thrown out garbage. And he literally looked up and down me like 5 times. I never forgot the way that man made me feel. And he has been promoted so far above and beyond that now. He doesn't know anything about me, where I came from, and nor the fact that I felt like I looked really good. And there's a whole lot ways. So that's a negative example.
Yeah.
And I'll give a positive example. And then the second firm I went to, I'll give this guy's name directly. His name was Dan Langford. He's passed away now. The greatest leader I've ever met in my life. And the way he made everybody feel special, seen, heard, loved, valued. Now, he would be the first to punch you if you got out of line. But he was always communicating the values of the firm, what we stood for, where we're going, and the why we're doing it. He would walk around with his cigar. He never lit it. He just chewed on it. And he was leading Germans, and it was a German firm leading Germans and Americans. And, he was like, you want to take the hill with him. But, man, he would just sit there at night. And then when you didn't he wanted to make you a great leader. And what made him so special is he wanted you to surpass him. I mean, he literally wanted you to do better than he did. And you could feel it in the ounce of your bone. And so it's interesting now is it's all about how we make people feel. And whether it's in our family or at our offices, and we've got to be good at what we do. We need to practice our crafts and be world class at it. But if you leave a wake of destruction and it's all about you and narcissism, and I've just been modeled so much for so long about people I didn't want to follow. I think I could write a book on that. But at the same time, it has allowed me to do the best I can. But I also have an entire community around me that holds me accountable to being better. Like if I make a mistake or I'm having a problem with a certain employee or with a client, the first thing I'm looking at is the mirror. Okay,
Yeah.
is this me? Is this one of my insecurities? Is this my blind spot? And I'm not being hard on myself. I'm just reflecting, because I usually know that when I look in the mirror, it's the solution and the problem. And so I want to have someone hold me accountable to be better for my blind spots. And then that helps me just gauge where I'm at. So I'll leave it at that. But it's amazing. I got to tell you something real quick about mirroring, and watch this. You've coached some of the greatest speakers around, brother, and greatest leaders around, but it's amazing. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That's how good technology, especially our phone and social media companies, have become. If you're in a restaurant and the entire place is finally present, they're in their conversations, they're actually enjoying dinner together, one person in the restaurant picks up a phone, just one. 50% of the restaurant will pick up a phone. And speaking, it's 10 times worse, because they're talking about the mirroring and that opioid addiction of a phone. And it's just insane. That's mirroring on steroids, added technology. I just wanted to throw that in there. Watch it next time. And watch
Yeah,
Watch if someone picks up a phone around you, how bad you want to do it.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, look, it's like smoking used to be, right? You'd see somebody smoking if you were a smoker, and oh my God, I gotta light up, you know? And listen, a lot of those people now have kids, and they are coming back to Jesus, you know, and saying, wow, I'm so sorry we did that, because they were using neurobiology and gambling, things that people learned from gambling and all that kind of stuff to addict us. It was that was the term that people were using, you know, make it sticky, bring people back, addict, you know, make it addicting, like it was a good thing. And I do think that we are suffering consequences from that. And I think who's really suffering consequences from that worse than we are is our children.
Oh my God. That is
Know,
a pandemic in itself.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, and I think that empathy is just one of the key things about being human. And I will say, all that time you spent in the woods and all those, like even the bad things that you did and the experience of how that felt afterwards and all that stuff, me too. I don't think I could do what I do right now if I hadn't spent so long in the woods and hadn't just failed so abjectly for so long, you know, because I have a level of compassion that's just authentic and natural for me. Because man, I screwed up so much, right? And so I feel like that's like I would probably neither of us would go back and want to do that again. But the fact that we lived through that, I think, does make a difference in who we get to show up now as, and the depth of compassion and understanding that we can bring.
Yeah, I think it's wisdom. I think it's grace. I think it's humility, humbling.
Yep.
And I think it's compassion and envy, and we learn it for ourselves as well. And that's why a lost start is, you know, in indigenous societies, including here in America and Africa and around the world, is there was elders.
Yeah.
And the reason everybody went to the elders for advice, whether you went to war or what you did or who's doing what, is because of their failures, because of their wisdom, because of their triumphs or tragedies, and their humility and grace.
Yeah.
And that's been a lost art in our society, as we don't embrace the wisdom of our elders. In fact, we tuck them away because we don't want to see death. We literally tuck them
Yep.
away and
Yep.
in homes because we don't want to recognize that death is coming, when what we need to be doing is holding these people up and idolizing them, because we could learn so much from them. And that's a lost art we have. And I'm going way deep, and I'll come back.
That's good. I'm with you. I agree.
Yeah. It's something we've lost.
I agree. I agree. So, I think that you work with a lot of top people too, Tommy. And what is, because I know we're coming up on our hard stop here in maybe 10 minutes or something, but what are some of the things that you have seen maybe over and over that people just don't know?
The people that I typically deal with have reached a certain level of success because it's just my former life.
Yeah.
They've reached a certain level of success and a level of boredom. What's next? When? More? And they think if they just sacrifice a little bit more of their time or get that extra 100 million, 10 million, whatever it is, it's going to fill that void inside them. When this happens, or when I have more and when, they just never arrive, and we're chasing ghosts. And it comes at the compromise of our health. It consistently, what I see is they put their value, and I put a lot of my value in my work, and I feel like my work is so super impactful, because if I plant, whether I'm running a mastermind, a group, or a conference, or a retreat, or one-on-one, I feel like when I plant the seeds of love and goodness in these people, the fruit grows somewhere else. But when and more never get here. A lot of people put themselves last. And I train people to put themselves first. The consistency is none of us, unless we start doing this work on the inner game, finding peace, happiness, and contentment, forgiveness, and love, and respect, and confidence. I'm going to use the word confidence. Everybody lacks it in some way. And how do we develop that internal game for courage and confidence and self-love and self-respect? Almost 100% of the people who come through my office deal with that. And it doesn't even matter. I've got people well into the 9 digits, or people just getting started out. There's a confidence issue. We all bring our past and what we think's right or wrong into the room. And we all want everybody else to be like us. That's what I see consistently. And not everybody else is like us. And not everybody wants to think like us or has the desires. And the final thing I see consistently over and over and over again is we all struggle in the relationships with our significant other. And all of us struggle with, are we the same person at home that I am on this podcast? Am I the same person on this podcast that I am with a client? Well, the answer is yes on that. But then, do I take my family, my wife, my kids, do I take them for granted? Am I the first one to be mean or disconnect or say something rude or shut them out because we think it's convenient? And why is my sex life not good enough? Why is my romance not good enough? Why? I'm being honest. That's truth. It's across the board, brother. It's across the board. Why is my intimacy? Why do my kids want to stab me in the eye and they won't talk to me? And so we compromise all the things that we say are important, because when we get there, wherever the hell there is, and we never get there, by the way, because that is a ghost and a moving target. I'm telling you, my $10 million guys want to make $100 million. My zero guys just want to make their first $10. I mean, zero. Yeah. I got everything in between. But we all struggle with winning more. We all struggle with status, especially men. Men crave status and respect. They crave it. They crave it. And they think that's in their car, their title, their money, because that's what we say all over our media. That's what we teach. Yeah. And yes, those things are important, but they won't bring you happiness, peace, fulfillment. They won't bring you better sex life. They won't bring you relationship. They won't bring you love. They won't bring you confidence, and they won't bring you courage. And so that across the board is what I consistently see. And no one is spending as much time on themselves as they need to. And for some reason, we're the only asset we got: our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, and our spiritual body. And we put it last. A lot of the guys I'm with put physical bodies first, but their emotional, mental, and spiritual is just as important. And if
Yeah.
it truly, you talk about leadership, you truly want to be a great leader and lead people, work on your inner game, your heart, your mind, and your soul muscles. And I promise you, from profitability to results to leadership to people walking with you, but next to you, not behind you, next to you, it comes from the inner game. That's what I see constantly.
Yeah. So I totally agree with you. I mean, some of the words that come to mind for me when I think about what you're talking about, you said it, fulfillment. I don't think it's possible to truly be successful if you are not fulfilled. How that's just, there's, you have a lot of money, maybe, and a big car and a big house, and, on your way from 10 to 100 million. But if it's not fulfilling, whatever. It brings to mind, we just had the Super Bowl a little bit before you and I are talking. And, like Peyton Manning, that's the guy, right? I'm not a big sports guy. Like,
Tom
I
Brady.
haven't.
Tom
Tom
Brady.
Brady. That's it. Excuse me. Yeah, please don't let me confuse those two.
I
Tom
love it.
Brady. Tom Brady.
They're both winners, though. So you're on the winner track.
Okay, so Tom Brady, though, because Tom Brady is the guy I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's got more Super Bowl rings than any franchise in the NFL, right?
Insane.
Now, look,
Insane.
that is not because he is selfish and made himself a really good singular athlete.
Yes, he's a world-class leader, brother. World-class leader.
Absolutely. And I heard just talking with a friend today, one of my friends told me that he heard an interview with the coach, and the coach said, I can tell a player to do something and they won't. But when he tells them to do something, they do. And that's all about how he tells them and his leadership. And he was walking around at the end of the game, and one of the announcers said, look at him. He's going around. He wants to make everybody on the team feel special. And I was like, okay, that's, like it could, that's it. There's probably a lot more to talk about, but that's all we got to talk about,
World-class leader. And I promise you, he's clearly got to work on his physical game because, and it's crazy. Like, I think he and 4 others spend millions of years on their recovery, their stretching, their nutrition, and their bodies. Yeah. But think about the ROI on that investment. I mean, it's made him 100 times that.
Yeah.
But I promise you, and I know this to be fact, and Tom's made some mistakes. He's the first one to admit it. And there it is, gift of going second. But I promise you, he works on that inner game hard. You can't be that laser focused and that good because you got 300-pound men trying to kill you. You got every hater in the world try to take something from you because they don't understand why you're so successful. And he's standing there like a stoic. That's the inner game. That's no matter what happens, I got this. And he could, courage is not the absence of fear. It's just stepping through the fear and it going anyway.
Thank you.
That's the inner game. That's the soul, the mind, and heart work, not just the body work. And, I talk about, when you start this inner game, it's going to sound strange. You literally start vibrating differently because we're all energy. Words are energy. We're energy. The whole world is energy. Yep. And your energy starts vibrating different. Do you think he got the hottest model in the world because his energy was bad? No. Because of his inner game, his confidence, his security in himself, and the fact that he loves her. And so goodness in, goodness out, nutrition in, nutrition out, poison in, poison out, darkness in, darkness out. So he's earned everything he's got, but I promise you his inner game is rock solid.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fabulous. That's fabulous. I mean, and it brings me back to what I think is one of your big themes, Tommy. Certainly I agree with this theme, which is you got to start with yourself, and it sounds so selfish to say, I got to start with me. I got to take care of me. I've got to, work on me, focus on me. Hey, it's, that's just an artifact of how we're hearing it. It's not selfish at all. It's the best gift anybody could give to everybody else in their lives, including themselves, to take that time, focus on themselves, get better, love themselves, all that stuff.
Otherwise, you're a martyr. And that doesn't mean you have to be physically dead, but if you're physically dead, you're good to no one. But what if you're mentally, emotionally, and spiritually dead? What good are you then? I mean, who are you good to? Who are you truly serving? Can you truly respect others if you don't respect yourself? Think about the people who gossip and judge and blame politicians. Do you think they're doing any inner game? No. Their soul is hurting. Their emotions are hurting. Their mental's hurting. And look, I'm being harsh, but go find the mirror. That's the problem and the solution.
Yeah.
We put everything else first. We become martyrs and victims of our own doing. It's nobody else's fault because we've all got the same country, the same politicians, the same. Why are some of us happy? Why are some of us not? Why are some of us in good relationships? Some of us not. Why are some of us successful? And it's not because of luck or lottery. Hell, most lottery people come broke in 3 years. It's because they do the work. They get up and they do the work. They work out. They work on their soul, their mind, their heart. They go out and put goodness in the world. And by the way, we don't have it all figured out. We don't. We screw up. I still have fears and insecurities. I mess up. I want to be a better husband. I literally write the affirmation every day. Thank you, Tommy, for being a loving, present husband. Not because I'm a loving, present husband, because I really want to be. And I work damn hard at it because she's earned that and I've earned that. But at the end of the day, we've got to invest in ourselves first so that we can truly invest in others. And when we do that, we become the person of our dreams. And then we start attracting all of that money, success, relationship, people to us. And that's what makes the happy and successful happy, not luck, good fortune, and some random being in the sky that says you suck and you're great. No. They gave us all the same opportunity. What are we going to do with it?
Yeah. I love it. I love it, Tommy. So I think that's a great note to end on. I want to thank you very much for your time. Thanks for joining us. People can find you at tommybreedlove.com, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Just type Tommy Breedlove, and they can find Legendary at their favorite bookseller, right? Yeah.
So, Audible, electronic, hardback, softcover. It's in every form. If you like my Southern accent, I'll read it to you. It's on Audible.
That's right on. That's right on. Well, good. So I encourage you to go check out Legendary, check out Tommy, and thank you everybody for investing in yourself by spending this time with us. And I hope that it's been useful to you and that you enjoy it. And Tommy, thanks for coming and contributing to us here at Speak Like a Leader. You certainly got that down.
John, I'm grateful and humbled to be here. And I'll leave you with this. Like my mentor told me, are you tired of living that story you tell yourself, or do you want to start living your life? And here's the last nugget. You must participate in your own rescue. You must participate in your own rescue. And I will leave it at that.
Perfect. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you for joining the Speak Like a Leader podcast. Go be awesome.